I traveled up the river Lum for a place to hang my hat. I stumbled upon a humble town. I went down and killed some rats, armed with nothing but an iron mace and wistful dreams of glory. I vowed I shall conquer this place in Edgeville, where I began my story. Edgeville. Located just south of the wilderness, this town is home to violent spade stealers, basement-dwelling neckbeards, and other ne'er-do-wells of all shapes and sizes. After rewatching my own Extreme Onechunk series, I was inspired to try my hand yet again at another chunk-based Ironman account. The Extreme rule set in particular appealed to me because one of my favorite parts about this game is appealing to the YouTube algorithm. But, in addition to that, I just enjoy creating and then abandoning new Snowflake Ironman series. In many ways, making the first episode for a new series is the most fun you can have as a RuneScape YouTuber. It's all downhill from there, after all. What, you actually want to complete your chunk? Ha, yeah, sure you do, pal. But this time, I'm gonna take what I learned from my last attempt at an Extreme Onechunk Ironman, and I'm gonna do something that would have saved me countless hours. I'm gonna be keeping my starting gear from Tutorial Island. Oh shit, did they forget to give me a pickaxe? The very first thing I did, which I would highly recommend every chunkman do as well, is max out all of my stats, complete all quests and achievement diaries, and get 100% current favor. Thankfully, Tutorial Island was kind enough to provide me with my best-in-slot gear for all three combat styles, but I still have a few skilling tasks to complete before I can leave Edgeville. I'll need to cut a yew log, burn a yew log, and fletch a yew shield. I'll also need to smelt a steel bar with iron and coal from monster drops, and I'll need to cook some pita bread, as well as purchase the Edgeville respawn and angelic gravestone. In addition, I'll need to obtain all uniques from Briofita and Obor, to include the Ooey Gooey Essence and the Hill Giant Club. I spent 42 minutes killing 100 black demons trying to obtain a black axe, and I didn't get one. So I killed thugs for a steel one instead. We'll need to go back to the black demons eventually, but this'll do for now. I purchased a knife and a tinderbox, chopped 3 yew logs, burned one, and fletched the other 2. Then, using the ores I obtained from killing thugs, I smelted a steel bar. It's just that easy. One successful trip with the Hill Giants later, and I am able to afford the coveted Edgeville respawn. I also purchased the angelic gravestone, knocking 2 more items off the list. Decided to check out the new gravestone and... oh fuck, I should probably cut this part. This episode, I accomplished more than I ever thought possible within the Edgeville chunk, but the hardest grinds are yet to come. Next episode, I'll be tackling the Hill Giant boss Obor. I'll need to invent new strategies using the limited resources available to me, but I think I'm up for the challenge. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you have a splendid day. This video has been brought to you in part by the following people: Acidity Tom, Alec Taylor, Ash, Blues, Digital Animal, Grant Baylor, Joseph Poindexter, Kai, Kiwi Birds, Luna Meyer, Ryan, Scotch, Seriously Inept, The Reaper of You, Upakashyap, A People, Aaron Elmstrom, Alaria, Millsy, Rinnet, Ryan Smith, Tony, Yakum Yakum, Dan Furno, Anthony Sims, Captain Halftoe, Edgar Allan Flo, Garm, Kai, Liam Clark, and Tom. And if you're still here, thank you so much for watching. Maybe click on another video, or maybe like and subscribe. I don't know. You do you.
Thanks, Frosty Bard.
All right, y'all. Now that the fake gamers have left the video, you guys are the real ones. I'm gonna take this opportunity to talk about my favorite Magic the Gathering Commander deck, Brago King Eternal Blink. Get it because he's blinking. I put the sticker on it because he's blinking. Anyways, so Brago King Eternal. You cannot read this at all, so I'll read it for you. Basically, whenever he deals combat damage to a player, he's a flyer. He's got evasion. Whenever he deals combat damage to a player, I can blink any number of non-land permanents I control. They immediately come back. They get their ETBs, yada yada. Bada bing, bada boom. We got some value. So this is an Azorius deck, so white and blue. and it is probably my most annoying deck to play against. And I've really been trying to make it less annoying to play against. I've taken a lot of like the Staxy stuff out, actually, believe it or not. There's still some of it in, but anyways, here we go. So getting into the creatures, we got a nice stack of creatures with ETBs here. Aether Channeler is a new one that I like quite a bit. When he enters, you can choose one. You can make a 1/1 bird token with flying. You can return another target non land permanent to its owner's hand, or you can draw a card. Nice and flexible, really good card. Agent of Treachery. He enters, you steal a thing, and then if you have 3 stolen things on your end step, you get to draw 3 cards. It's really dumb. It's really annoying. Got a lot of repeatable like blinkable removal pieces. So Anthan Mutineer, he you can exile a creature. Archaeomancer is a nice little recursion piece with a couple of our sorceries. This ends up going infinite pretty fast. I run both temporal manipulation and time warp. So if we can blink Archaeomancer, we get infinite extra turns basically. Astral Dragon is another. It's one of the cards that I've added kind of recently to make the deck more fun. Um, it's 8 costed, so it's kind of ridiculous. Very very late game card, but when it enters, you can make 2 tokens that are copies of any target non-creature permanent, except they're flying 3/3 dragons. So with say Astral Dragon and like a Panharmonicon or something, suddenly you have 2 more Panharmonicons, and if you blink it, it just goes a little insane from there. Cemetery Illuminator is a card that hasn't really been proven for me yet, honestly. Whenever it enters or attacks, you exile a card from a graveyard, and you may look at the top card of your library at any time, and you may cast a spell or yeah, basically this enters, you exile a thing from one of your opponent's graveyards, and so they can't get it, and then you could potentially also cast something from the top of your library that shares type with it. Pretty good when you're blinking it, and you can kind of manipulate what you are able to cast. It's both like a removal piece, and it's also a card advantage piece. Charming Prince, I usually go with the gain 3 life or the Scry 2. But you can also use them to blink things. Clever Impersonator. I run a lot of clones in this deck. Clones are great, especially when you can blink them and you can change what you want them to be. I also run a bunch of cards like Cloud Blazer. They enter, they draw. Very good card. Deadeye Navigator, I still run, despite it being outclassed now by Displacer Kitten, but you know, Deadeye Navigator still goes infinite with some things. Displacer Kitten is just so good. And speaking of going infinite, Eldrazi Displacer is, I think, a better version of Deadeye Navigator, at least in this deck. For 2 and a colorless, you can blink whatever you want at instant speed. I've actually used it to turn off opponents' attackers before by returning them tapped under their owner's control. I specifically run a lot of things that tap for colorless to kind of get over the colorless requirement for that mana there. Ethereal Valkyrie is one of my favorite cards in the deck. This was originally the Kaldheim ran our Foretell deck, and I have since converted it into a full-on Brago Blink deck. And yeah, Ethereal Valkyrie is just so much value. It's a 4/4 flyer, so it's already pretty great, but when it enters or attacks, you draw, and you get to foretell anything. It's a draw engine. It's also kind of ramp, and it protects your stuff from like opponents discarding because you can just foretell and they can't interact with it at all. It's pretty great. Felidar Guardian is another combo piece kind of. What's great about this is that it can blink lands, which I run Mystic Sanctuary to kind of act as another Archaeomancer. Glasspool Mimic is a land, is a clone, pretty good. Glorious Protector is another little blinky guy. She also protects our things, and I like Foretell. I also really like the art on her. Lauren of the Third Path is a newer card from Brothers War. that I've been liking a lot. It's an artifact or enchantment destruction, and you can also use it as a kind of political tool. You get to draw a card when you tap her, and you get to choose someone else to draw a card. Mole Drifter is another draw piece. Palace Jailer is introduces the Monarch into the game, and the Monarch is really fun. And this also, yeah, is another removal piece. So I like Palace Jailer a lot. Peregrine Drake is stupid. It's probably the best card in the deck. It makes infinite mana with a bunch of different things, and look how regal he looks. Oh man. Preston the Vanisher is a newer card from Jumpstart 2022, and I've only gotten to use him once, but he is so much fun. Whenever another non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, if it wasn't cast, which were blinking things, you make a token that's a copy of that creature, except it's a 0/1 white illusion. You can also sacrifice 5 illusions to exile a non-land permanent. So it's a removal, it's doubling all of our stuff. Super good. Radiant Solar is another kind of for fun card, but it does give a lot of value. And with infinite blinking, which is possible, this is a win con. Whenever Radiant Solar or another non-token creature enters Venture into the dungeon, I like Venture a lot. I think Venture is super fun, and yeah, that's pretty much that. If you infinitely venture, eventually you drain the entire table out. Restoration Angel, fuck. Restoration Angel is another protection piece that and also kind of lets you blink a thing once. Skyclave Apparition is another removal piece. Solemn Simulacrum, the sad robot, is ramp, and it's very easy to get every single basic out of my deck with this card. I like Solemn in this deck. People hate on Solemn, but Solemn's great. Solitude is stupid. It's busted. There's a reason that this card is at least $50. The Evoke Exile a White, it's a free removal spell, and we can blink it, so pretty nice. Also, the art is just so good. It's so good. It's so good. Soul Herder is not that great, but it's an extra ETB per turn for us. Stonehorn Dignitary. I love this card so much. It enters and target opponent skips their next combat phase. This card is so annoying. Everyone hates it except me. Thassa Deep Dwelling is another soul herder, but slightly better because she is indestructible. Tribute Mage is a card that I have added because I have a lot of 2 mana artifacts. I specifically added more to work with Tribute Mage, but she gets our main combo piece, which is Strionic Resonator, that lets Brago infinitely blink everything. And yeah, we also run a lot of 2 mana rocks and lightning greaves too. Venser Shaper Savant is basically a counterspell, and then later on it's a very annoying removal piece, and I like the art a lot. Wall of Omens is more draw. Whirler Rogue she makes Thopters on ETB, which is always nice, and then we can tap 2 untapped artifacts to make target creature unblockable. What's really cool is that she can make opponents' things unblockable, which is a really interesting political tool sometimes. But mostly it's to make Brago unblockable in case the opponent has flyers or something. And then Yorion Sky Nomad is once the scourge of modern, is just another way for us to blank basically the entire board whenever we want. It's a very good card. And onto the sorceries. In addition to Time Warp and Temporal Manipulation that I showed earlier, I run the best board wipe in the entire game, Farewell. And the not as great, but I really like the art here, Time Wipe for another board wipe. Now on to Instance. We have a nice little suite of interaction. We got Counterspell, Classic, Cyclonic Rift, every commander player's worst nightmare. Dovin's Veto, one of my favorite counter spells. It can't be countered, and you can counter a target non-creature spell. Ephemerate, probably the best blink spell. Like, You get to blink 2 things for 1 mana. It's pretty good. Ghostly Flicker allows us to blink lands as well, which is important since we run a Mystic Sanctuary. Mystic Reflection is a kind of pet card of mine. As you can see, I pulled it in the Kaldheim pre-release pack, and it's a really good card. It can be used offensively. It can be used, like you can make your own stuff enter as whatever you want it to, and you can make your opponent's stuff enter as useless garbage if you want. So it's really versatile. I love this card so much. Path to Exile and Swords to Plowshares, you know what they do. And Swan Song, yet another counterspell. Moving on to the artifacts, I run a total of 6 mana rocks. We got Arcane Signet, Azorius Signet, Basalt Monolith, which, Brago being able to flicker it is nice, Mind Stone, Soul Ring, and Talisman of Progress. And then the last few artifacts, we have Bident of Thassa, which allows us to get some card draw anytime Brago connects, which he does a lot because that's the point of the deck. We also have Lightning Greaves to protect Brago, Panharmonicon to double up on our ETB triggers, and Strionic Resonator to go infinite and win the game. And the enchantments, which is probably my favorite part of the deck, to be honest. Brago being able to flicker enchantments is super nice. Yeah, it's super nice. So Act of Authority, when it enters the battlefield, exile target artifact or enchantment. The bottom text doesn't really matter, but you can basically choose to exile something else and give control of this to an opponent. But I'm never going to do that. It's a May, and I'm really just going to be flickering it for the first effect. Candlekeep Sage is a recent addition. Commander creatures you control have, when this creature enters or leaves the battlefield, draw a card. Brago can target himself to flicker himself when he enters and leaves. So he draws 2 cards every time he flickers, which is nice. Confounding Conundrum is a very, very annoying card. 2 mana when it enters, draw a card. That's the part I care the most about. But then it also prevents green ramp from going insane because it basically makes it so you can only have 1 land enter per turn. Probably my favorite enchantment in the deck is Kiora Best's the Sea God. Mostly because of that first ability, which is create a 8/8 blue Kraken creature token with hexproof. So every time I flicker this, I get another 8/8 with hexproof, and my Kraken army grows ever stronger. I love this card so much. The second ability, so like let's say that the gameplay loop here is I want to play this, flicker it with Brago again in the same turn, so I get 2 Krakens, and then the next upkeep it ticks up to 2. I can basically make someone not be able to block because I tap all their creatures, and then I swing in with the Krakens, I kill them, I flicker this again, I make another Kraken, and the pain continues. But the very last ability there, gain control of target permanent and opponent controls, also isn't bad. I mean, it's a lot of value for 7 mana. Mirror Maid is my favorite card. I feel like I've said that a lot about a lot of things, but I feel like I put this card in every single blue deck I have. Mirror Maid, 3 mana, it enters as an artifact or an enchantment, and there's always, like, the best cards in Commander are artifacts or enchantments. And for 3 mana, you can get the best thing on the board. And with Brago, I can flicker it and make it the best thing on the board again. So love that card. Omen of the Sea enters, scry 2, draw a card. Reality Acid is a very, very sneaky little card in Brago because so enchant permanent, when it leaves the battlefield, enchanted permanent's controller sacrifices it. What's interesting is that auras, when they enter, they don't actually target anything, but they still attach to whatever you choose. And so you can get around stuff like hexproof by blinking this, and when it blinks again, or the vanishing ticks down, which you never really want it to in this deck, that thing gets sacrificed anyways. And sacrifice also gets around a lot of really annoying mechanics, so Really good card, really great removal piece in the deck. Smothering Tithe is a filthy, filthy commander card, and I run it because it's good to have. Reconnaissance Mission is another copy of Bident of Thassa, except this one is signed by the lovely and talented Johannes Voss. I'm hoping I said his name right. And lastly, for the enchantments, we have Unquestioned Authority. When it enters, draw a card, and Enchanted Creature has protection from creatures. It's basically another thing to help Brago get through, and when it enters, it also acts as card draw. And then for the lands, there's not really too much of interest. I do run the usual suite of dual lands, so Commander Tower, Shockland, etc. But I do run these 3 dual lands, Adarkar Wastes, Mystic Gate, and Nimbus Maze, specifically because they can tap for a colorless. And I also run a bunch of utility lands that can also tap for a colorless. So Access Tunnel is a better Rogue's Passage in this deck because it's a cheaper way to get Brago through. Demolition Field deals with pesky lands. A Ganjo is just great to have. It's a free removal spell. Flooded Strand, I specifically put in here because it can grab Mystic Sanctuary, which is a basically a win con piece. And then Otawara is also another like free removal spell, basically. Plaza of Heroes, I haven't really tested too much. I'm not sure if I like this card, to be honest. But it can be used as a dual land to cast Brago at least, and it can tap for a colorless and can protect Brago in a pinch. And then Reliquary Tower is a bad card, but I still run it. And that does it for my my Brago King Eternal Commander deck. Thanks for watching. If you watched it, I had to pad the timeout, you know, to get the mid roll ad. So if you somehow watched all the way to here, I don't know what to say to you. That's weird to me, but thanks for sticking around. I hope you enjoyed whatever this was, and I hope you have a good rest of your April Fool's Day. Or if you're watching this later, I guess you might be watching this later. This was an April Fool's video, if that wasn't obvious. It's getting awkward. Um, I don't even know if I'm gonna edit this part, to be honest. I might just this is getting 21 minutes. Jesus. Yeah. Well, bye, I guess.